To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. All right, Laura, if you can help me with the roll call.
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Mayor Aslett, Mayor Donovan,
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Wiesen,
Here.
Commissioner Janicki, Commissioner Browning,
This is Auditor Perkins sitting in for Commissioner Browning.
Councilmember Stavic, Councilmember Vanderstook, Colleen Kennedy, and Judy Jones.
Here.
Okay, thank you. And we have a quorum, so I'll move on to item 4, which is public comment. Any member of the public wish to address the board of directors? Don't see any hands raised and don't have anybody in the chamber here. Okay, move on to our consent agenda. These are consent agenda items A through F. Again, those items have been distributed to each member of the board. And if you have any questions, or I will accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so there was a motion. I don't know who made the motion.
Johnson.
Mayor Johnson.
I just wanted to make a comment about the back to school fair deal on this thing.
Okay, so let's see, that, what item number is that? D.
D.
Yeah. Yeah, if we can, we'll pull consent agenda item 5D. And I would, okay, so now we've got a motion, and I think by Mayor Johnson, second by Mayor Donovan, to approve the consent agenda items A through F with the exception of D. Is that acceptable motion and second? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Item 5D, Councilmember Stavic.
So my only question was, how do we determine on these things that are for free? I mean, this is a free service that we're gonna do for when they reach out for stuff like that, because I know that I think we're doing it for Berry Dairy Days as well here. How does that whole thing work? Is there any compensation back to Skagit Transit, or do they just say, we want you to provide a free service and we do it, or how does that work?
So you're correct. Typically, an organization, or for example, the school or school district reached out and asked that we provide free service for this. And then, of course, it's ultimately up to the board as to whether or not they want to approve that free service. And there is no compensation for that.
Okay, so they asked for that. Is this just one bus? Or how does that?
We're not allowed to provide any additional service that would be considered contract work. This is just our regular service that we're allowing people that are saying that they're going to the event to ride for free.
So if you're heading out to Concrete on the bus and they say, hey, we're going out to the book fair, then we say, okay, it's free for you.
Yeah, they just identify that they're going to this event, and we allow them to ride for free. We're not providing any additional service. It's our already existing service.
Is that true with the Berry Dairy Days? I thought you do it here at the parking lot and stuff. I thought that's
The Berry Dairy Days is a little different. We're running, folks are asked to park, or a lot of folks are parking at the high school because we have limited parking at the actual event. And then we're providing service closer to Berry Dairy Days, to the event. And we've been doing that for kind of like Pioneer Days. It's something that we've been doing, the agency's been doing for many years.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Mayor Aslett?
I just say that we need to.
Yep.
And make a motion to approve 5D.
Second that. A motion by Mayor Aslett, second by Commissioner Wiesen to approve consented item 5D. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Was early.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we're on to item 6 and 6A. These are full discussion action items, and item A is looking for approval of resolution 2024-05 surplus of equipment. Crystal.
Thank you. Skagit Transit identified 6 vehicles that have met their useful life benchmark and are now surplus to Skagit Transit's rideshare and staff vehicle fleets. In accordance with Skagit Transit policy and procedure for disposition of surplus property, all vehicles will be prepared for sale through an open or sealed bid auction. Pursuant to RCW 46.70, the auctioneer shall be a licensed and bonded vehicle dealer. The only such auction house in close proximity to Skagit Transit for transferring vehicles is the Bellingham Public Auto Auction LLC. The scheduled auction date is June 1st through 7th. Skagit Transit staff is asking the board to authorize the CEO to dispose of surplus vehicles by process of auction and transfer of agency program support. It says no budget impact, but actually that's not necessarily true. We will receive, Greg, anywhere from historically $2,500 to $10,000 back per vehicle. So we'll make that correction.
Yeah, it's a positive budget flow.
Yes,
change,
positive.
so,
Thank you.
Okay, and none of them approach the mileage of my Tahoe, but those still look like high numbers.
So when you send it to auction, do they just auction out for whatever they can get for it? And do they get a percentage of the fee of what they get for the vehicle? How do they get paid to
That's a good
auction?
question. Greg, can you?
The fee is added to the seller of the vehicle, so the purchaser of the vehicle, not the seller. So it's done, whoever purchases the vehicle has a certain percentage on top of that, what they agree to pay.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Good question.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Mayor Miller,
Commissioner Weason?
I know I bought a pickup from Anacortes about 12, 15 years ago on publicsurplus.com. Is that what it was? Well, it was an online auction. I'm just curious, have we ever looked at some of those online things? Do you have better prices? Do we know, or I'm just curious?
You know, I believe it was Commissioner Janicki that it was either you or Commissioner Janicki. I'm not sure, but one of you mentioned that too. So we can look at that as a potential option moving forward.
Working through our Washington Association of Counties now, I believe, so there was a presentation a while ago. But I know I did buy something from Anacortes.
I can't hear what's being said. I'm sorry. I don't know if the mic is on or if you're
Oh.
speaking into the mic. I cannot hear on this end.
So I think the question was, what auction house or which auction service are we using? Was that?
Right, and is there other ones we could be looking at or online things or options? That's the question.
I think that's the only physical one that's located close to us, because yeah, but we can look at some, would you want us to do that in?
No,
lieu
you
of-
go ahead and this. I'm just curious why we chose this one instead of just because it's closest. But if it's an online auction, I don't know.
I'm going to give you an answer that I've heard many times since I've been here, because that's the way we've always done it.
Yeah,
We can look at other options though.
And whether we get a better price using, again, I forgot the one that we use, but it's publicauction.com or something.
It was the same one, right? The same one that the counties used. Yeah, we'll take a look at that one for future.
All right, any other questions or
Just
comments? Yeah.
one more question, I
Yeah.
promise. Did they come and pick these vehicles up, or you drive all these up to them up in Bellingham?
We transport them up there to Bellingham.
Voluntary.
All right, so looking for a motion or any other questions?
I'd make a motion
And
to,
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Mayor Asler, second by Mayor Johnson to approve resolution 2025-05 surplus equipment. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item 6B, this is a requesting approval for HB Hansen change order number 9. Crystal.
This is not a conversation that I'm looking forward to having with the board, but in full transparency, here we go. On May 19th, 2021, the board approved contract number 19-014-F for phase 1 construction of the MOA2 facility with HB Hansen Construction in the amount of $2,885,000. To date, the board has approved change orders 1 through 7 totaling just over $1.2 million, almost 1.21. And last year, change order 8 dated April 14th totaling $1.6 million, just over. Staff would like to present for your consideration today, change order 9 dated April 2nd, 2024 in the amount of $103,893.54. Change order 9 includes a myriad of things, but us going back and forth with the contractor and the project manager for review, KBA, not our new project manager. Weather and flood delays, installation of 6 posts for canopies, which we've talked about a number of times, costs related to the winterization of the building, materials needed to approve electrical connections to the Collier door, the riser room compressor, and exit sign at door A108B. Staff together with our architect have reviewed and authorized change order 9. So we are recommending that you approve the listed change order for MOA 2 and with a budget impact of $103,893.54. And I am prepared for questions.
Yeah, I know there'll be questions on this one because anybody who's been on the board for more than a few minutes realizes that this is a very challenging project, but and a big one. You know, at least a year behind, if not more, and, you know, double the budget. This is
Double, yeah.
more than, so this is painful, but I think don't really have too many options, but open for questions. I know Crystal's ready for questions.
We've definitely made a step in the right direction by hiring our project manager, Eric. He's done an excellent job of already identifying some and saving us some duplicate cost expenses. I can almost assure you that phases 2 and 3 will be much different, especially with him on board.
So this will make the total project so far almost 5.8,
Oh,
5.9.
Just over. So the original contract amount was $2,885,000. The change orders identified here brings it to those total 2.9. So it's just about 6.1 actually. It looks like about 6.1. Yeah, so more than double. And I would like to tell you that this is the last one, but that would be a lie. Just for, again, full transparency, I already know that change order 10 is coming, and just moments ago before the board meeting started, I was advised by Eric that we're looking at probably about $165,000 for change order 10.
And Eric is our new
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Manager.
Eric is our new project manager,
project.
our in-house. project
In-house.
manager.
Why are the change orders, like this is 9 and you're preparing for 10? Why not put them all together? I mean, like, when I see installation of 6 posts to support the canopies, I would think that wouldn't be something that was missed on something. When I think of a change order, I think of, okay, we're in the middle of something and, oh, we didn't realize this, so we need to add something, as opposed to, like you're telling me you're working on already change order 10. Why wouldn't we just do them together? Why do so many different little change orders like this?
Well, they're not little, they're big,
Right,
they're
you're
big.
big. You're right.
And I could have done that. We could have rolled 9 and 10 into one, but I just chose to, these are done. Like, we know what these change orders are. So instead of waiting for the next round to come, I just chose to bring it to you guys for approval, and we'll get another one next month.
But when you say done, the work isn't done, right?
The work is done on the weather and flood delays is done. The installation support of the 6 canopies is done. The winterization is done. The electrical connection is, yes, all of these are done actually.
So you can do the change order prior to get authorization. I mean, because essentially this money has to be paid, right? It seems to be in reverse to me to say, okay, go ahead and do it, and I'm gonna get the approval later.
So I have signing authority up to $100,000, but these have all been under, obviously. So now we're looking at 6 different CCDs, I think, that were rolled up into change order 9. And we technically still have money in the budget. We still haven't spent the total 5.8, I think it is, that the board has approved. But this this is in addition to what the board has already approved. We've spent about 4.8, I think, $1 million so far. So we have about another $1 million-ish of money that the board has approved, but this is not included in that. So I technically haven't gone over budget until we pay all of the other expenses.
And would we say that is true for all of the change orders? Because to me, I mean, granted, you know that I'm new here on this board, but when this thing was approved, there's a budget, right? There's a budget for what's approved for this building and what you're doing over there. And to me, the change orders are everything that are outside of that, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't need our approval. You already had it on the get-go.
Yep, that's correct.
So all of these this is 9 and there'll be 10 coming. I don't know, maybe the next meeting will change order 10 be on the next one.
That's my expectation,
Yeah.
yes.
And then those will be all in addition to what was already approved on the budget, right?
Correct.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So, Crystal, you stepped into a mess. You really did. And I really
I know.
appreciate the way that you've, been going about keeping us informed as to what's happening. And, I appreciate the fact that you are bringing these forward each time and they're laid out exactly what they are. I think that this is a difficult process, but I feel quite confident with you at the helm. We're gonna get through this process. It's certainly been a nightmare. And, I just want to say that I greatly respect you taking it on. So, yeah.
I feel like we're getting it under control now, again, with the help of our project manager. He's going to be instrumental in this, but rather than delaying this any further, I feel like it's important to try to be as transparent with the board as possible and let you know the costs that are here in front of us now, in addition to looking at what's, coming down the pipeline that you ultimately will have to approve or not approve. But I don't know that that's, as Mayor Miller said, I don't know that that's really an option.
Yeah, I'm certainly not saying not approve it. It's just like I don't know if you answered like this thing with the 6 posts to support the canopies. How would something like that be found later as opposed to early on?
The engineer estimates when we first started, they thought they could cantilever the thing, but then when they got snow and stuff on it, it started sagging, so they figured they better lift it up. So there were some engineer issues that were going on with why those posts need to be added. So that's the way I remembered them.
And I think, the architecture too, the way that it was drawn up, I think the architect had miscalculated.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson, both of you actually. So to both of your point, there is at least 2 items, and I'm not going to say specifically what those are because we're in potentially litigation. We're supposed to go to mediation with the current architect. There's at least 2 items on here that have had to be fixed that were taken to mediation with the architect's insurance company for errors and omissions, and we're hoping to receive some compensation back for. It's more than this, but 2 of these things on here have been identified as potential errors and omissions.
So thank you for mentioning that. I wasn't sure, without having our attorney in the room, I'm a little reluctant to talk about it, but there is, we're because of that work with attorneys, there's history.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been pretty transparent with all of you about us going, being in mediation with them
And I've certainly said publicly as a new board member last year is like, okay, do we just cut and run? And really there's not even, that's really not a great option. I mean, it's a terrible option.
unless we want to be responsible for paying all of the federal taxes back. And then that doesn't really solve our problem. We still need a building.
We're moving forward with a fresh perspective, and we're going to make it happen. And thanks to Crystal's leadership.
And to your point, Mayor, we've not identified publicly who the architect is. I'd prefer not to,
Yep.
but it's not HB Hansen. The architect is another agency, another organization.
All right, so looking for a motion on this one.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mayor Johnson, second by Commissioner Wiesen to approve HB Hansen change order number 9. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, 6C, approve Astound contract continuation. Crystal.
Skagit Transit has a longstanding partnership with Astound initiated in 2011, which has been pivotal in maintaining and enhancing our critical network infrastructure. This partnership has evolved through acquisitions and expanded needs, leading to the current contract, which encompasses a 36-month agreement for dark fiber connections that are essential for the operation of cameras and Wi-Fi across various park and ride locations. As part of our ongoing commitment to ensuring the best possible service while adhering to fiscal responsibility, the next renewal of our contract scheduled to end at the end of this 36-month period will include an updated sole source justification to ensure that continuing with Astound as a sole source provider remains in the best interest of Skagit Transit. The necessity for such a renewal strategy stems from the critical need for seamless integration of services with our existing infrastructure and the unique capabilities provided by Astound. Transitioning to another provider would not only involve significant compatibility challenges and infrastructure development, but also potentially expose our operations to unacceptable risk of network failure. And it's my understanding in talking to our IT director that Astound is the only fiber provider that provides service to some of our park and ride locations. And so we've taken that to the rest of them to include some of our camera systems and our park and rides. Staff strongly recommend the approval of the continuation of the sole source contract with Astound for dark fiber connectivity services before May 30th to secure our locked-in rates and avoid any potential increased costs which would result in a budget impact. There is no additional budget impact as the expenditures for the continuation of the sole source contract with Astound have been fully anticipated and accounted for in the 2020 fiscal year budget.
All right, questions or comments?
We even looked to see if there's another provider, or we just didn't look or you did look, so.
The IT director has, yes, and it's my understanding that the reason that we're continuing with Astound is that they're the only fiber providers in certain areas. And I want to say, I'm going to look back at Nick. I think it's March's Point. Do you know which park and rides that we only have Astound available to us off the top of your head? I want to say it's March's Point and some of the ones that are further out, maybe southwest Mount Vernon.
Just met with Zipley. I can tell you the discussion went there, and there are locations within Skagit County that there are only one provider too. There are some sections that have multiple providers, but if you've identified the locations you need, that they can get to all those and other people can't, that would fill the bill then for the sole source.
Thank you for that.
All right, any other questions?
Is this another 36 months, this one?
Correct. It's another 36 contract renewal. And just for, I don't have the dollar amount that's costing us about, I want to say it was about $1,300 a month, $1,300 a month. I think it's about a $48,000 contract.
All right,
I move to approve the continuation with the sole source contract with Astound for dark fiber.
a motion by Commissioner Weissen, a second by Mayor Aslett to approve the Astound contract continuation. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Now we're on to item 6D. This is looking for approval of the dispatch agreement 2024-2025. And Crystal?
The negotiation process for the local 176T dispatch collective bargaining agreement 2024-2025 has been completed. The following is a summary of changes that were agreed upon for this contract based on the signed tentative agreement from December of 2023. This includes new language, added language, and altered language. I won't read through all of them. Everybody received, the whole board received a full contract if you're interested in looking at what was changed. The only economic impact to this agreement was the 4.25 increase in wages for January 1st through January 25th. So if the board approves this, the dispatchers will receive retroactive pay back to January 1st. And again, this 4.25 was already adopted in the original budget, so there's no additional economic impact to our budget for that. So staff recommends the board approve the dispatch collective bargaining agreement.
And Colleen, this was approved obviously by the members? Yep. All right, any questions?
I make motion to approve the dispatch agreement for 2024 through 2025.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Mayor Aslett, a second by Council Member Stavig. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We're on to item 7, informational items. And first up is personnel policy manual. Jennifer or Crystal? Crystal, you're gonna do.
So we just wanted to provide a quick update on the PPM. We're still actively, Jen and I are still actively working. There was a lot more changes than we were expecting. We're going to give it a final review on Wednesday, on Friday rather, and send it out to the board by Friday evening so that the board and AFSCME will get a copy as well, has a full 30-day review. Is there anything else that you would like to add? So thank you for your patience, and Commissioner Janke was the one that actually gave us until the end of June. So I want to thank her. She's not here, but for having the foresight to know that it was going to take us longer than the, I think, 30 or 60 days that we were asking for.
Yeah, go ahead.
Point of information, it has been looked at by lawyers or somebody.
Yes, it's already been reviewed by lawyers, so we're making the recommended changes from the attorney. I don't think it needs to go back to the attorney for review. We just need to incorporate some of the changes. And then there was some internal changes that we're changing that really don't require legal review. We just need to make sure that we're writing the policy as we're doing things and not, we want to make sure that we're compliant, so.
Right. Next up is the 7B CEO update. Anything else, Crystal?
Notice that Miss Judy didn't provide an update.
Oh.
Did Miss Judy
Oh,
provide an
so-
update?
Well, I didn't see, it, but if Judy, if you want.
I do have one.
Okay,
I'm glad to defer to Ms. Crystal if she'd like, but however you want to fit me in.
Thanks. I'll run through mine really quick. As noted from change order 9, we'll talk about MOA2. First, we have experienced significant delays and unexpected costs for MOA2 since the beginning of this project. We are expecting to receive another change order, as I mentioned, in the coming month that is estimated to be about $165,000 and cause for a further delay of about 8 to 10 weeks. The new anticipated completion date, substantial completion date for phase 1 is July of 2022 and final completion of August 22nd right now, 2024.
Say that again, that you said 2022.
Substantial completion, July 22nd with final completion, August 22nd. And that is taking into consideration the changes that are coming from change order 10. We're not expecting that to bump. So change order 9 took us out to April 20, third week of April sometime, I think it is. This is taking us out about another 8-10 weeks. So we're now looking at substantial of July 22nd, final completion of August 22nd. Our architect is continuing to work on the final design phases for 2 and 3. We're still on track to put the bid out for construction in September or so, and are expecting to issue the notice to proceed in November or December. Of course, that will have to come to the board for approval. Once the architect has completed the design, we will have a better cost estimate of the construction for phases 2 and 3. Right now, we're estimating it to be at $29.5 million, but that's we'll have a better idea once the architect is done with their design. We still have not resolved the tax issue with our contractor, but are actively engaged with them working on a resolution, as we cannot close out phase 1 until that's resolved. To date, we have paid them about $320,000 in taxes and have withheld almost $98,000 on the advice of our attorney. We still believe that we have overpaid and will have to work with the Department of Revenue for a potential refund if that ends up being the case. We received notification from, this is still about MOA2, from Representative Rick Larson's office Monday, that he submitted our $3 million request for the community project funding grant that we applied for back in April for consideration for MOA 2. Our project was one of 15 that Representative Larson has chosen to support. Now we just wait for the committee to work through these requests and hope that our project will be included in the House Appropriations Bill. We still have a $19.5 million grant request for the RAISE, the Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity grant pending. Those awards will be announced no later than June 27th of 2024. In the interim, we are exploring the option of applying for a TIFIA loan, and I was at the SCOG meeting. They, Kevin Murphy or Mark, I believe, talked about a TIFIA loan. I met with the team that assist agencies through that process when I was in DC in April and have begun the preliminary steps to apply for the TIFIA loan. That process typically takes 12 to 18 months. Actually, the library got a TIFIA loan too. So it's important that we start now just in case we're unable to secure the grants we need to see this project to completion. Before we actually apply for the loan, of course, this will come to the board for full approval. I have been told by the agency that helps agencies get the loans that while most of the loan process takes 12 to 18 months, that ours will probably be about half since we've already started that process. The loan application process, they hire a third party person to assess your credit rating, and that third party charges anywhere between $250,000 and $1 million. It would likely be, again, about probably half that cost, maybe $125,000 to $500,000 since we are already in the process. But again, and that cannot be rolled into the loan. It has to be paid out separately. There's a lot of benefits to doing the TIFIA loan. If we get to the point, so we'll know in about a month or so, 5 to 6 weeks, whether or not we get the RAISE grant. If we do not get the RAISE grant, it's going to be important for us to try to secure this TIFIA loan. So we've started the preliminary process before we actually apply. Well, it'll come to the board for approval. If we get the RAISE grant, we will likely not need this at all. So once we get through June 27th, so we'll have one more board meeting before then. So I won't know anything for the board before the next board meeting, but by July, I should know whether or not we need to move forward with applying for the TIFIA loan. And if that ends up being the case, I will provide a full explanation to you of the costs, the benefits, and a full layout of how the entire loan process works. And I'll probably have to seek Mayor Donovan's expertise on that.
We have files and files of notes for you.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a prudent move to look at this. You know, we know MOA 2 is, there's costs involved. We've got reserves. However, this is a prudent move if the grants don't work out.
So we're in the process of submitting the letter of interest, and they look at that to even determine if we qualify, if they want to offer to allow us to apply. So we're at that stage right now. So I'm hoping that we actually don't need to go that route. But if we do, I'll come back to the board with a full presentation on how the whole loan process.
Because it's a timeliness thing, as I know Mayor Donovan knows about, that just the time to work through that.
What's the name of the loan? What is it?
TIFIA,
TIFIA?
yeah.
Oh,
And if you give me a moment, I'll look up what that actually means.
Yeah, I'm sure it stands for something.
so, and then just one other thing, the third party. Why would you need to pay? You said something about your credit rating. I mean, that seems pretty expensive. What do these folks do?
It wouldn't be us that would hire the third party. It would be the Bureau of, I can't remember the government agency right off the top of my head that does that works through the loan approvals. They would be the ones hiring the third party vendor to do a credit assessment on us.
But we would have to pay for that. Would we have to pay?
We would have to pay for that. Those funds are not, we cannot roll those into the loan. So it would be an actual cost that we would likely have to pay through. Oh, thank you. And it was in this packet somewhere. Transportation. I had the first two words right. Transportation Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act. Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
Is that all for the CEO's
Nope,
report?
nope,
Okay.
I'm only on page 1.
Oh, okay. All right, sorry. Yeah,
Um,
keep going.
Last year, the board made a motion that requires us to get permission to apply for grants for MOA2 and only MOA2. Next month, I'd like to have further discussion and hopefully a board action that rescinds that requirement. We know that we will likely have to piece the funding together for this project, much like Mayor Donovan did or previously Mayor Boudreau did for the library project. And we have almost missed out on grant funding opportunities since we only meet once a month because of the way the deadlines are. So if approved, I would still like to communicate to the board what grants, if you approve that, I would still communicate to the board what grants that we are applying for and what the match requirements for that would be. So if there's no questions, I would look for that at next month's board meeting.
Yeah, I think this is a result of a letter. I know I signed it as board vice chair on this grant, and I think it kind of ties up the executive's hands a little bit more than we anticipated. So if you need a copy of that letter, Crystal, I'm sure can send it out to the board.
Sure. I'll make sure Laura gets it out.
That basically said, hey, you got to come to the board each time for those grants. So, but you'll come back next month, right?
Yeah,
Look
you
to
and I-
relieve that requirement.
Yeah, you and I didn't have an opportunity to talk about it until yesterday, and I didn't want to bring that to the board without
Yeah.
being able to
No.
talk to you first. So.
Are we only approving grants that involve some kind of a match?
Right now, the requirement is only to approve. Are you talking about for application or for
This
approval?
board here, because I noticed that there were some of these grants here and I'm a big fan. Obviously, you need grant funding. You have a person on staff that does grants. Do you only need to bring stuff before this board that involves some kind of a match that would be a cost?
No. So right now, the requirement is to bring any grant that we're going to apply for MOA2 only to the board first before we apply. And that's the one that I'm going to ask you guys to rescind next month. All other grants that we apply for, the board has to approve those before we can actually accept them, whether there's a match requirement or not, with the exception of our formula funds. Those are the funds that we get every year. And we don't apply for those.
I don't know how the rest of this board feels, if that, is that even necessary? I mean, to apply for a grant that wouldn't involve some additional cost or match. I would
That's why
think,
she's bringing it to us next month.
yeah,
Discuss it, right?
Right, correct.
because you would prefer not to do that. You'd prefer to just go out and apply for these grants without getting permission from this board, right?
Well, so again, the only requirement right now is for us to do that for MOA2. We're not required to do that for any of the other grants that we apply for.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, that would be the ask next month is
Sure.
to not have to ask for permission to apply for grants with the understanding that there would be a full transparency of us telling the board what grants that we're applying for and what, if any, match requirements there are and how we intend on coming up with the additional funds to cover the match.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and I know different jurisdictions have rules on grants for us in Anacortes. It's really, what's the match and do you build that and you've got to build that in your budget. And so
Sure.
I'm pretty wide open when it comes to applying for grants until the impact is to the budget with the matches.
And I'm very aware that grants are not necessarily free. There's almost always a match involved, or maybe it covers capital, but not operating expense. And so we always take that into consideration when we go after any grant. We recognize that we're going to have to come up with the additional funds to actually, and it's, I'll say resources, because it's not even necessarily funds, it's the people resources oftentimes that it takes to be able to spend those funds too. So if there's no other questions on that. So for recruitments, we selected a candidate for the Director of Finance position and have made a conditional offer pending the results of a background check, which I believe we actually got back this morning. We're expecting him to start June 17th. I want to thank Commissioner Janicki for her help and support, and she's not here, but on the recruitment panel, as well as Mayor Donovan for allowing Steve Sexton to sit on the panel with us. Our planning and outreach supervisor started May 1st. She is working remotely until June 3rd when she relocates. She's already secured housing here. Our grants manager has been working remotely for about 3 months because she's having difficulty finding affordable housing. I have granted her another extension. So right now it's through middle of June with the expectation of her being here June 17th. And my expectation is that she's able to figure out how to relocate here by then. The bus driver class that started April 15th is progressing. The 2 students that came to us licensed are expected to be out on their own by the end of May. And then the remaining students, the ones that we are licensing, should be out on their own by the end of June. Hopefully that will relieve some of the overtime that the drivers have been forced to do. We're doing forced overtime often, many days. Move on to some of the other things that I've been working on. I've been to a number of conferences since the last board meeting, most notably the APTA Mobility Conference in Portland, where one of the primary topics was zero emissions buses. I attended a number of sessions related to zero emissions buses and found the presentations to be very useful. It is definitely advantageous to hear some of the successes and failures of other agencies, and more importantly, to help develop relationships with other agencies. AC Transit, which is a huge transit transportation in the Southern California, or not Southern California, Northern California Bay Area, has developed the required training materials for their zero emissions fleet, and they're willing to share their training manuals with us. So I'll be reaching to them. Greg or I will be reaching out to them as we transition to zero emissions buses to acquire their training materials so that we don't have to develop it from scratch. One of the speakers noted during his presentation that we're no longer buying buses, but rather technology. So it's been really useful. And so I attended this conference. I was kind of a last minute book for me. In retrospect, I wish that Greg, the director of maintenance and operations, would have gone with me, because they have, most of you been to meetings or conferences rather, where they have sessions stacked. And there was a number of sessions that I wanted to attend all at one time, but I wasn't able to do that. So moving forward, I'll definitely take Greg, but it was a great conference. Another hot topic in public transportation right now is microtransit, which we're looking at doing. While I do have experience building and implementing microtransit, a lot has changed since then, and it was really useful to hear what platforms and business models other agencies are using and what they find to be the most successful. So overall, it was a great conference. APTA in general is a great agency or organization for us to be involved in, and that was one of the things that I got us involved in when I started here. We were not APTA members. We have a lot of resources at the state level. For example, WISTA is a great resource, and other agencies within the state. But having networking opportunities throughout the United States has been, I was involved in APTA at my other 2 agencies, and is really useful. And that was one of the reasons that I wanted to get us involved in APTA here, so that we have nationwide, not only exposure, but networking. And I'm encouraging my staff I'm on a couple of committees for APTA, and I'm encouraging my staff to join some of those committees too, so that they can have the same opportunities and exposure that I do. If there's no questions about that, I'll move on to the triennial. We really don't have an update on triennial. I guess silence is good. They've not asked for any supporting documentation. However, at one of the conferences that I did attend, one of the other executive directors mentioned that about a week or 2 prior to their actual on-site visit, that the auditor flooded them with a bunch of requests. So I don't know if we have the same auditor or not, but that may also be the case with us. If that's the case, we're prepared to manage that. The team, with the exception of one person, knows that they can't go on vacation during that time, because it's going to be all hands on deck in the event that the auditor asks for documentation in each respective department's area. So we're prepared for that. On May 1st, the state scheduled an on-site visit to conduct a leasehold excise tax audit. Chris Arkell did a great job. He met with the auditor and provided the information that was requested. The audit went seamless, as have all the others that we've had recently. And I want to thank Chris for taking the lead on that in my absence. The state will also be conducting an on-site visit to audit our capital assets. Greg will be taking the lead on that. This is a routine audit, and we don't anticipate any issues, right? Okay. Feels like it's one audit after another. So as soon as we finish our triennial audit, we'll right into our state audit again. There's no questions about audits. I'll go right into the next topic, which is our governance committee update, which Mayor Miller, Mayor Aslett and Commissioner Browning are on. We met again a couple of weeks ago. We have three more policies that I'll send to you before the end of the week for review. The progress on getting through these policies has been much slower than I anticipated, and that's primarily due to me not having the time to sit down and rewrite policies. When the new director of finance comes on board, I'm going to ask him to take the lead on that. I, of course, will be involved, but I'm going to ask him to be the one that's primarily leading that. So hopefully we can get this process moving a little bit faster. Next thing is I met with the 911 executive director and the radio tech, the DM executive director, Department of Emergency Management, and a representative from the sheriff's department on Monday. We're looking at potentially moving our radio communications over to the county network. We did a needs assessment with the team, and the radio tech is going to put together a couple of different options for us. One is going to be upgrading our existing system. The other one is going to be rolling over to their system. The goal is to have better coverage in our service area to cover our dead zones and have direct communication with first responders in the event of an incident in this area that requires direct collaboration and communication. Once we have a plan, we will implement that into our strategic plan and TDP and look for funding sources, as we already know that we will have to update our radio system, whether we stay with our own or whether we move over to the county. So we will budget and plan for that accordingly. Meeting with community transit. I met with representatives from community transit on Monday to discuss the possibility of them providing service to the portion of the, I'm probably going to say this wrong, so forgive me in advance, the Seattle?
Soxwato.
Say it again?
Soxwato.
Okay, I wasn't even close. Reservation that is in Skagit County, so the portion that's in Skagit County. There is no plan for us to provide service to that area anytime soon, and I'm in the process of drafting an agreement with them that will outline the specific service area that we will be allowing them to operate in and include language that allows us to take that area back if we do start providing service to the reservation. I will bring this to the board next month for approval and make sure that I have a map that outlines the service area that they're wanting to enter into our PBTA to service. They will be claiming the ridership for this area, but it will not impact our existing funding. Any questions on that? Long-range transit plan. Our consultant is continuing to analyze the survey results and compile a preliminary list of service recommendations. Once the list is complete, they will begin to present the recommendations to the public and continue to engage in the community for feedback. We plan about the plan and we will make changes accordingly. I'm hoping that we can do some easy ones that are zero cost or little low cost, but we'll see what they come back with. And then I am doing a presentation on that to the county. Commissioner Wiesen will get to see it for, I think, the 4th time. I do have some additional stuff that I'm adding to it. Next week sometime, I think it's the 21st, I'm doing a presentation for you guys. Community events. We will have a booth at the following community events: May 22nd at the Children of the Valley Youth Event, June 6th at the Skagit Valley Youth Event, June 8th at the Cedro Woolly Blast from the Past Festival Fair, and June 15th at the Berry Dairy Days. So that's all we have between now and the next board meeting. And the last thing that I have for you guys is the executive team will be meeting for an all-day strategic planning session on September 23rd. I'd like to schedule a board retreat sometime in October to present our strategic plan, share our vision and goals for 2025, go over our draft budget, and give the board an overview of our grants. If there are any additional topics the board would like to see in the retreat, please let me know. Laura will be sending out a Survey Monkey in the next day or two to establish the board's availability. Last year, I think we scheduled, was it 2 or 3 hours for that? 3 hours. So we'll plan on doing a 3-hour retreat. If it ends up being less, then we'll give you guys some free time back. But those are the 3 things that I identified that I think that the board probably needs to know for sure as we kind of look at what we're doing in 2025. And again, if there's anything else that the board would like to see, please let me know and we're happy to incorporate that. But other than that, Laura will be sending that out so we can get that on your the board's calendar now, because we know how quickly your calendars book up. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, well, there was a lot of information there, so I don't think the board can say that you're not doing stuff, so good
We're
stuff.
trying.
All right, so we don't have it on here, but Judy, if you want to give a
Yes.
CAC report, that would be fantastic.
Okay, thank you. I'll just do a couple of highlights here from our meeting yesterday. One, of course, is that we were introduced officially to our new liaison, the new Planning and Outreach Supervisor, Stevie Matthews. She gave a brief overview of her work experience in the transit industry. And we also had a couple of guests that spoke briefly. Julie Myers from Community Action. I was glad to see her there. And we have a new CAC applicant who's interested. She was also there and she participated also in some of the meeting as we were discussing some of the transit options, the connectors and so forth. So that's basically it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I don't have anything else on the agenda, so with that, I will adjourn the Skagit Board of Directors meeting.